Welcome to Plugins Worth Plugging In. In this weekly podcast, we cover a number of WordPress plugins that hopefully you haven't quite heard about, or maybe you have, just haven't thought about in a while, and they're all ideally geared to making your WordPress life just a little bit easier. This is episode number 4 for the week of August 15th, 2011, and in this week's episode, we're going to cover plugins to help you optimize WordPress. Now, last week we focused on plugins to help you make WordPress a little bit faster, and we focused on caching plugins. So these were plugins that actually stored pages or recoded your pages so that they loaded a little bit faster. In this week's episode, it can get a little more technical. So we're going to start with some of the easier stuff and then dive into some of the more technical aspects of it. But these are plugins to help optimize your database, to help optimize your CSS or your JavaScript queries. And so again, it could be a little bit technical for some of you, and if you're at that level, great. Hopefully these plugins will come in handy. If you're not, we're going to start with a couple of plugins that are a little more general and a little bit better probably for a beginner. So if you want to try these out, see if they work for you. If not, uninstall them and deactivate and delete them. But if they work, hopefully you heard it here first. Okay, let's get on with our first plugin. Starting out, we chose WP Optimize. And again, you don't have to worry about remembering all of the names because we have links to all of these plugins in our show notes. WP Optimize is a great plugin to start out with if you are a beginner. It's pretty simple to use, and it does a number of things when it comes to organizing your database. WordPress is great when it comes to autosaves and having multiple revisions of your pages and posts. And you may have seen this, especially if you do a lot of posting or if you're constantly changing or updating your pages. You'll see that there's numerous revisions of a certain page. Well, once you have that post done and published and set, and the same thing with your pages, once you've got those final versions done, you don't need all the backups. WordPress, unfortunately, does keep those, and sometimes that can gum up the works for a while. So what you want to do is get a database optimizer that will go in and erase all of those backup copies that just aren't needed anymore. The other thing that WP Optimize will do is it will go into your comments and it will remove all unimproved comments. It will remove all comments that have been marked as spam. So if you haven't done that in a while, this is a real quick way to go in there and clean everything out. And the other really nice thing, which is not quite in the realm of optimizing, but is still very, very useful, is the ability to go in and change a username without having to go into the backend and use anything like PHPMyAdmin or some other backend cPanel tool. You can actually change usernames directly from this plugin. Why is this a security option? Well, if your main admin username for your WordPress site is admin, you're just not secure because admin is the default username that it uses. Everybody knows this. And so if a hacker is going to go out and try to break into your site, the first thing they're going to do is say, okay, let's see if the username is admin. And WordPress by default will tell the hacker if they have the username right and the password wrong. So if they type in admin and put in some password and it says, hey, you know what, your password doesn't match, well, they basically just figured out that username is admin, and now just have to figure out your password. So with this plugin, you can quickly go in. If you have created your WordPress installation with admin as your default user, you can actually go in and change that username. So it makes it a nice little roundabout plugin for optimization and a little bit of security. WP Optimize is a little bit old. It's updated fairly regularly, and it is fairly popular. It's got about 150,000 downloads. It's rated at a little over 4 out of 5 stars, according to WordPress.org, and is currently compatible with WordPress 3.1.4, though it looks like it does indeed work with 3.2.1 as well, which is the most recent version of WordPress as of this recording. Its last update was about 5 months ago from this recording. So again, it's a little bit old, but it has been updated in the past fairly often. We would expect that it would be updated in the future as well. Our next plugin is along the same lines. It's called WP Database Optimizer. And this one is a little lighter than WP Optimize is. In fact, it just focuses on the database, and it's got one other important difference, and that is this is automated. So you can set it up so that every X amount of days, this will go through your database and clean up any remnants that are still remaining, including the same things that we had talked about with WP Optimize. So this will go in and clear out any of the remnants of old plugins that you aren't using anymore and have deleted, or any old revisions or autosaves that are still laying around. This does not have that edit security feature of changing a user, but again, that's something you may or may not need. Because WP Database Optimizer isn't as intense as WP Optimize is, it hasn't been downloaded as many times. In fact, it's almost at 11,000 downloads total, though it is compatible with WordPress 3.2.1, and its last update was within about 4 months as of this recording. The current rating is 4 out of 5 stars, according to WordPress.org. When it comes to optimizing your WordPress site, another important area to focus on is the size of your images, and in fact the type of your images as well. Because if your images are the wrong size or if they're the wrong type, it can dramatically slow down everything. In fact, I'd say if there's one thing to focus on, that's it. Because a lot of sites, when people start, they take these great pictures and they upload them, but they're just monstrous in size and they take forever to load. If you want to start with a plugin, because probably in the near future, we're actually going to dedicate an entire podcast series just to handling images and plugins to help handle images. But a great start, since we're working on this podcast right now and optimizing, is a plugin called WP Smoosh It. Now, what WP Smoosh It does is it literally smushes down the images that you currently have on your blog. Now, if you have them uploaded through Media Library, it will do this automatically. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll have to go back and re-upload all of your images for WP Smoosh It to take care of images that are already on your site. But if you're just starting out, anything you upload after you install WP Smoosh It should be pretty much taken care of. And it's a great plugin to start with just to get the idea of which images should be uploaded and how much space you can save. What this will also do is it will eliminate unused colors. So that's one way it will reduce the picture size. It will switch GIF images to PNG files, which sometimes can load a little bit faster. And it will optimize JPEG images to help them go a little bit faster as well. Currently, according to WordPress.org, it's at almost at 91,000 downloads, so it is fairly popular. It was last updated within about 4 months of this particular recording, and it is compatible with the most recent WordPress version, which of this recording is 3.2.1. It's rated a little over 4 out of 5 stars, again, according to WordPress.org. These next 3 plugins that we're going to talk about, in fact, our final 3 plugins, are all focused on improving your JavaScript queries and your CSS files and optimizing your WordPress site through those. The first on our list is WP Minify. WP Minify will take your JS and CSS scripts and it will minify them or compact them into a single script so that it will run a little bit faster. Again, this particular plugin and the next 2 that we're going to cover are slightly more technical. So if you aren't comfortable with this, that's fine, but it's something worth taking a look at because it does handle a different aspect of the WordPress site. The downloads, according to WordPress.org, are just almost at 150,000. It was most recently updated within about 3 months of this particular recording. According to the developers, it is compatible with 3.1.4, though it seems to have also tested compatible with the most recent version of WordPress as well. It's currently rated at 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is a plugin called CDN Tools. Again, this plugin focuses on your JavaScript and CSS queries, but the way that it handles it is slightly different. So where it will still optimize those scripts and help them run a little bit faster, instead of minifying these scripts as WP Minify does, this will actually help you to place them on a CDN or a content distribution network so that they'll run faster because they're on an external server. This particular plugin is not as popular as the rest, mostly because it's not really optimizing in terms of condensing or rewriting code in any way. It's merely just placing it at a faster server so that it will actually load faster, but that might be what you're currently looking for. The downloads right now almost at about 9,000 downloads, and this plugin is a little older, but because it handled things in a slightly different way, we felt we should at least bring it to your attention. It was updated a little over a year ago from the date of this particular recording and is currently rated at 4 out of 5 stars. The most recent version it's compatible with, at least according to the developers, is 3.0.5. Finally, our last plugin is conveniently named JS and CSS Script Optimizer. So this will again do the same thing where it's taking your JavaScript and your CSS and optimizing it, actually rewriting it slightly so that it loads a little bit faster. And that makes it a lot like WP Minify. WP Minify uses the Minify engine. JS and CSS Script Optimizer, however, uses JavaScript packing. So it's a slightly different way of optimizing, and it might or may not give you better results. But again, we wanted to at least give you the option to have the tools. Now, one nice thing about this particular plugin is it is the more recently updated out of all of these plugins. This was most recently updated within about a month of this recording. It does have a little over 7,000 downloads and is currently rated at 4 out of 5 stars according to WordPress.org, and is compatible up to version 3.2.1, which of course is the most recent version of WordPress as of this recording. So there you have it. There are 6 different plugins that you can use to optimize various parts of your WordPress site. Again, to review, we have the database optimization, we've got image optimization, and you've got optimization for JavaScript and CSS scripting. If you are going to install any of these plugins, and just with plugins in general, make sure that you keep backup of your WordPress site, because if anything goes wrong, you just don't want to have to reinstall everything from scratch. So always make sure you have a backup, especially when you're playing with plugins that can adjust the code, as many of these plugins will. If you have any suggestions for future plugins that we should be reviewing for plugins worth plugging in, please do us a favor and submit those. You can actually find us at wptrainingvideos.com. And if you happen to be a newbie to WordPress, that is, you're sort of just figuring out the whole WordPress thing, and maybe you've got some of the basics down, but you really want to make sure you've got them all down, there's a great site that, of course, we recommend because it's our site, wptrainingvideos.com. Currently, we've got a little over 40 different videos that are all free, and it's quick and easy to sign up for. So again, you can find that at wptrainingvideos.com. This is episode number 4 of Plugins Worth Plugging In, Optimizing Plugins. And this is for the week of August 15th, 2011. Thanks again for listening. We will see you next week.